It's pretty much always a memory, a very sad memory for me. I was actually on Staten Island the morning that it did occur. I was staying with a friend who works for the Drug Enforcement Agency, and I was on a recruiting trip, and I was supposed to go in that morning with her actually to see her twin brother that worked in the towers, and he worked for Cantor Fitzgerald. And so for some reason, I always say this today, is my mom and dad were sitting on my shoulders saying, maybe you just need to sleep in that morning and not go in with her to New York City. As soon as the plane hit, my friend Lisa D'Arienzo called me right away, said, "Has my brother called?" And because she couldn't get a hold of him, I guess someone spoke with him at 8 in the morning. I said, "No, no one has called right now," and her phone just started going off the hook because she was a cop. And you know, so she's standing in her office, more or less seeing the towers. Nobody could go anywhere. No one could get close to it at that time. So you know, at that point, just didn't know what was going on. Phone lines was going dead. I was trying to get hold of people from work, my family, just to let them know I was okay. But just really kind of went through and lived the experience, obviously, with my friend who ended up losing her brother. What it ended up is I needed to really be there answering the phone. I ended up being stranded there for 3 days. And the biggest thing is it was fear, sadness, overwhelming. I mean, you're sitting watching everything pretty much burn. My friend kept calling me as my brother reached out, "Has anybody called?" You know, just hearing her voice, I always hear that within my own mind's eye and feelings. And you know, when everything finally, the buildings fell, then I'll always remember that phone call of her calling and her emotions and her devastation. I think one of the hardest things is she came home that night about 1 or 2 a.m. and she was down at the site because of her jurisdiction, and you could smell the ash. You could smell as soon as she walked in the door with some other cops and some other friends, just what it was really like. I was going to go back with her in the city the next day and try to help look and be part of the whole, you know, volunteers of trying to help, but she really felt I needed to stay and be the go-between there. And after seeing what they saw, obviously, it was devastating. The aura, the smell, the sadness. And so the next day I was pretty much calling the different places, describing her brother. I was working at the University of Maine at the time, and there's assistant field hockey coach was traveling up from Philadelphia, so she kind of came into the city where I was in Staten Island so we could travel back together. So we left at 2 or 3 in the morning because they said there was no more bomb threats on one of the bridges. So we finally left, and what was really sad is as we were leaving at 3 in the morning and driving up the coast, it was the most gorgeous morning the next morning, and it was one of the most devastating days of our whole world. And I came back a week later and I visited her, but I stayed somewhere else, and I stayed on the other side of New York City on a bay side, and I was at a bed and breakfast, and it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. Is I went out and you saw that there was notes on the rocks from small children writing to their dad or to their mother, you know, candle vigils, just endless. You just sat there and read these stories, and I mean, it was just plentiful, and you just sat and cried for all these people that lost loved ones and family members and everything possible. And that's when you continue to see, and still today, the devastation and just how hurtful that day will always be remembered in our country.